1 in 3 cancer patients who needed treatment during the pandemic say it was disrupted due to the impact of COVID-19 on the NHS.
42% of patients said their tests, including those to find out whether cancer had spread or returned, had been affected. With cancer research, you say, estimating as many as 38,000 treatments have not taken place.
Well, we're joined now by Craig Russell, who recently lost his daughter Kelly to cancer, and he's now calling for urgent action to prevent cancer deaths as a result of treatment delays. And also cancer specialist Professor Pat Price also joins us live from Cheshire. Good morning to both of you. Craig, your beloved daughter Kelly, you knew that she had bowel cancer and that you knew it was very serious. What impact did the pandemic have on her treatment?
The principal thing is that due to COVID-19, the chemotherapy cycle that Kelly was on was suspended, principally due to the risk of her catching COVID. The chemotherapy was the one thing that was effectively keeping her alive. So by putting that on hold, it allowed the cancer to spread quickly and consequently shortened her life significantly.
I mean, it's desperately sad. It's a desperately sad situation anyway. But for you to try and extend every precious moment and to know that that was at risk must have been so tough.
It was unbelievably difficult. We knew from early May what the prognosis was from a timescale point of view. Kelly never really wanted to know. So we knew we had very limited time because by the 4th of May, we already knew that she had 2 to 4 weeks to live because the cancer had spread so aggressively that she was encountering liver failure. So it was just a matter of time at that point and trying to make the very best we could from what little time she had left.
We're just looking at some gorgeous pictures of her. She looked so young and full of energy and bright, and so with so much potential. To have been robbed, Craig, of your daughter must be heartbreaking for you. Clearly, we're in an extraordinary time now. Do you think there would have been a better way of going about this? Could they have maybe kept up the chemo, or do you understand that there was just too much at risk?
From our point of view, then continuing with the chemotherapy would have been the right way to go. You have to acknowledge that there was always the possibility she could have caught COVID-19, and that indeed may have killed her rapidly. But the other side of the coin is the chemotherapy was treating something which she did have. We knew the chemotherapy was keeping her alive. So whichever way you went on that, there would be a risk, but I would have treated what was in front of us in terms of the cancer as opposed to worrying about something that she didn't have.
Professor Price, so many tough decisions had to be made, are still having to be made surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. What were the priorities, do you think, for people like Kelly? How did you go about deciding which was going to be the greater risk?
Well, we were given guidance from the NHS about prioritising patients, and that was obviously on clinical need and how rapid the tumours were and risk of getting COVID. I think the issue, though, is how fast we could have got going again when things had settled down, because of course we all had to be on the COVID front line in March when we locked down, but we hit the peak on the 8th of April, and by the 27th of April we were issued guidance to pick up again on cancer services. And I think the concern is that they haven't really picked up fast enough. Recently, the NHS were hoping to get services back up and running by the end of the year. This simply isn't fast enough. We need the same urgency that there was with COVID, with cancer now. Otherwise, we're going to have a national crisis again on our hands, and this time with cancer. The data from CRUK has shown about 3 million people are affected by this, never mind their families and the worry. And there is also work suggesting that 35,000 people may lose their lives unnecessarily from cancer due to the stopping and delaying restarting of the treatment. And then we have the other problem is there's now this massive backlog, as people will know. There's queues for tests and every part of the cancer pathway. So we're calling on the government to do two things. First of all is to give the same urgency for COVID as to cancer now and get these up and running immediately. And secondly, to boost the services, things like radiotherapy that you can safely use as an alternative treating through COVID, to boost services so we can deal with the backlog. Otherwise, we'll have a second tragedy on our hands.
Professor Price, what would you say if there's people sitting at home this morning listening to Craig talk so eloquently about what he's been through with Kelly and his family and now having to deal with, and then potentially having a family member or they themselves may be struggling because they need their treatment and they can't get back to the hospitals where they need to be?
It's heartbreaking. What they can do is sign Craig's petition, the Catch Up with Cancer petition on change.org. It's already got 180,000 signatures. If we get the whole nation behind us, if people could sign it today, put it on social media, get their friends, if we can get 500,000 signatures, the government will have to listen. If you read what people have written on the petition, it is heartbreaking, the stories, and as well the anger with people. The public do see this as a priority. They do want cancer services. So let's get behind all this and let's get this sorted. This doesn't have to be this way.
Sarah Jarvis, Dr. Sarah Jarvis is with us in the studio as well. It's heartbreaking hearing about this, isn't it? Absolutely heartbreaking. And we're still hearing reports of centres standing empty, of them being unmanned and things not getting back to work. Why would that be? Is there still staffing issues? What's the problem?
I wish I knew. I think the professor is absolutely right, because during the pandemic, of course, we need to bear in mind that the risk of someone catching COVID, someone in Kelly's position, if she'd caught it while she was in the middle of a chemotherapy cycle, her likelihood of dying would have been dramatically increased, and that was the big concern. But now that we're out of it, absolutely, yes, of course, we need to be careful about social distancing. GPs across the country are trying to plan their flu vaccinations at the moment for Christmas, and they have a huge, or for later in the year, and, you know, we're going to be booking people in at 10-minute slots, not 1-minute slots, because of social distancing. But there have to be ways of increasing the services, because the professor is absolutely right. If we don't, people are going to die just as effectively as they died from COVID.